So welcome everyone to the last of our V&E webinar series. Tonight, you'll hear from four of our attorneys on their experiences at V&E and life here at the firm. That being said, I'll kick it over to our four associates to introduce themselves. You can go to the next slide.
Hello, all. We have a great panel for you today, and we'll just quickly introduce ourselves. John, why don't you start?
Hi, everyone. My name's John Brown. I'm a second-year finance associate. I'm originally from Virginia, but working out of the New York office.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a first-year corporate associate here in our Austin office.
Hi, I'm Addie. I'm a first-year tax associate in our Dallas office.
And I am Jack Kimmel. I'm a second year or rising third year at V&E in the Houston office in the corporate group. So we're going to start with just kind of a broad introduction for our firm, and first slide we have here are where we have offices. And as you can see, I mean, these are beautiful pictures, to be honest. We're in all sorts of every corner of the globe. A few key offices in Texas, but we're on both coasts. And as you can see, internationally. And some of these photos are actual buildings, obviously not the Washington one, but as you can see, beautiful locations. Our growth has been strategic, I would say. It's not been done with huge mergers and just acquiring our way to different markets. It's been, culture fits and matches for our industries and areas of expertise. And actually, all four of us are in different offices, and it's true that we work heavily with, the people in our own offices, but there's a lot of cross-office work as well. And actually, I was going through my emails before this because I'm not in an office with any of these other panelists, but I recognize the names and notice that I've been on at least one matter with everyone else here, working on different deals. And, so thanks to the advent of the great and powerful internet, we're able to work together remotely and utilize our strengths and areas of expertise in different offices. Our newest offices, I would like to highlight, are Denver and Dublin. So the big D's there. Okay. This is kind of a beautiful chart here overviewing our practice areas. As you can see, our biggest two groups are just transactions generally, and those have subgroups you can see there with the bullet points, corporate finance, real estate, and restructuring. Then our next biggest group is litigation and regulatory, so kind of your litigation bucket. If you were to split into a general corporate, general litigation bucket, we're probably similarly sized in both. And then in those practice groups, there's a lot of overlap with the transactional work. And so some of them kind of straddle that line. And that's also true of our tax and executive compensation and benefits groups. There's often a disputes practice within those groups as well. So, but those are probably our key groups. And I think our panelists span several of these. Anything else to note? Let's see. Yeah, each one has different niches within it. And the percentages are just based off of the lawyers in each practice. So that said, when we work on different transactions or disputes, there's a combination of all of these lawyers working on those matters. So work that we do is not just within a singular practice group. We leverage the expertise of all the groups. And here's kind of a shotgunning of all of our areas of practice and industries. We do a lot of energy work. That's historically been the bread and butter of this firm, but energy touches a lot of things, and we also have, expanded our practice into all sorts of different areas. So I'd be pretty surprised if you guys had an interest that was not on this list, and sorry about that, but otherwise I think, we've got lawyers and experts in all these sorts of areas and lots of things to do, lots of different roles. We have a pretty diverse client base, and like I said, a lot of those are outside of the energy sector. We're a nationally recognized leader in energy M&A and private equity. We do a lot of capital markets work, energy transactions and projects, tax, litigation. And I'd say we like to consider ourselves a full service law firm, but I think we can say for a fact that we are a full service law firm. So if a client comes in, whether it be a business or an individual, and has a complex or difficult problem or wants a big project undertaken, we can serve as a one-stop shop for all of that. So we have our tax experts, litigation experts. We can cover all bases that you could possibly need within just our firm, and not all other firms can say that. So that's pretty cool. In addition to the legal work we do, our lawyers do outstanding pro bono work and serve our communities and the legal needs of individuals and organizations that cannot afford representation. Pro bono is something we take a lot of pride in here, and everyone's involved in matters that kind of affect our communities, and where we can help out and bring our expertise, we like to. So with that introduction over, we'll now get to our panel. We've got a number of questions that I'm going to ask these panelists on, and we'll start with this question. How did you choose V&E, and what did your path look like? We'll start with Katie.
I feel like I had a pretty traditional path here to V&E. I went to Texas for law school, so V&E always was a big presence on campus, and there was lots of recruiting events there. So I made every effort to go to all of the recruiting events, the 1L reception, and panels like this, not only for V&E, but for other firms, just to understand the differences between the firms, meet as many people as I could. And after that, I just realized I loved all the people at V&E. They all were super friendly, seemed to do very interesting work. So knew I wanted to be at V&E if I could. And I ended up spending both my summers here at V&E. I did my first summer in the Austin office, and then my second summer I split between the Austin and New York offices. Wasn't quite sure where I wanted to end up, ended up in the Austin office and just loved it. In the corporate group, I spent both my summers doing corporate work. So that's how I ended up here.
Thank you. John, what about your path?
I also had a pretty traditional path. I did a bunch of interviews when OCI was the main way to get a law firm job. And I did, my screeners with V&E, and I really, really enjoyed that. And then through the callback, I really felt that the combination of the work they were doing, along with just kind of the vibe that I got through all the attorneys I talked to, really seemed nice. And then finally, I talked to some upperclassmen at my law school who were, had done their summers at V&E, and they all had really good things to say about it. And I took jumped right into it, and I'm still here 2 years later.
Addie?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because mine's a little bit different. I went to Georgetown, so being on the East Coast, there's maybe a little bit less of a Texas like firm presence, even though I know we're in New York as well, but I kind of DIY'd it a little bit more. So I was sort of on LinkedIn, kind of looking into several people that were at V&E, emailed them, shot them a message, asked if I could get on the phone. And then, just talked about my interests, asked them how they got there. And that led to me going to one of the like winter events for 1Ls, eventually an interview, and eventually I was a 1L and 2L summer.
I'll just mention quickly my path because I think it's a little unconventional, but I went to Vanderbilt in law school, and I really liked Nashville as a city, but it didn't really have much of a big law presence compared to the larger markets in the US. And then I narrowed it down to places that weren't cold. I'm from San Diego, and I'm done being cold. So that crossed off Chicago, New York, DC, some of those other major markets, and then sorted by biggest cities after that. And Houston was the largest, and Beanie has a great presence in Houston, and frankly was my top choice from the beginning, and I got lucky, I'd say. Okay, moving on to this next question. All of us are in different practice groups. How did you come to decide on a practice group? And we'll start with John.
So the New York office has a bit of a different kind of summer associate program where you're not assigned and rotating through practice groups. You're just kind of a general summer, and it's free market. You can talk to anyone. And initially, I just kind of liked some of the finance associates that I met at events. And then kind of talking to them about their practice area, the problems that you solve as a finance attorney, kind of figuring out how to fund these projects was really, really interesting to me. That, along with kind of the role that we were playing at that point with a lot of the Inflation Reduction Act work that was about to come in, was also something that kind of stuck out to me. So that's basically it. Like just kind of like conversations, going to events, and really just kind of seeing myself fitting into the group well.
Addie, how would you say you chose?
Yeah, so 1L, I was really just trying to figure out if I was going to be a transactional lawyer or a litigator. So I went through litigation, the corporate group, and as a wild card at the end, I decided to go through tax as well. And then the following summer, I switched to all transactional. I did corporate, real estate, and tax. And both summers, I just really kind of resonated with the tax work and the people. And we also have, several classes offered in our tax program at Georgetown. So it kind of felt like a natural fit, which is ironic because I don't come from any finance or accounting background, but I felt like the culture here was like very willing to teach and build up from ground zero. Like I have a very vivid memory of someone coming in and like drawing on the whiteboard like different structures and how the transaction is going to happen. And I'm such a visual learner that I could see myself like actually being very interested in that sort of transactional work. So that's what hooked me, I guess. And then my 2L year, I just took as many tax classes as I could, which is not necessary. You don't have to do that. There's plenty of tax associates who haven't taken any. But yeah, I think it was just kind of a natural fit and a peak of interest.
Katie, I know you're in the corporate group, which means you weren't able to decide on a group and so went with corporate, but is that accurate?
Sort of. So the Austin office, because it's so small, the summer program is a little different in that summer associates tend to come in as either a corporate associate or a general CCL associate. So I kind of knew litigation wasn't for me. I took legal research and writing and was like, I want to stay as far away from Westlaw as possible. So knew that I didn't want to do CCL. And so I would kind of landed in the corporate group in the Austin office. And then when I was thinking about doing New York, I did actually do some rotations. I did some like tax work, I did some restructuring work, and ended up just enjoying corporate work. I like the collaboration of it. I like that it's shorter timeframes for matters. I know litigation can go on for years and years and years, and like corporate deals are normally like 2 or 3 months and then you're done, which I think is more fun. I like the faster pace of it.
And I'm sure this is true of the other practice groups, but I'm in corp practice, kind of the general corporate practice, and we actually had a question in our Q&A about kind of the fluidity of, within a practice group and trying to get exposed to different things. And I can speak to that a little bit. The corporate group at V&E does a really wide spectrum of work. And, I'm sure this is true of the other practice groups. And, I think our firm is great at allowing people to not be pigeonholed or narrowed into a specific niche early if they don't want to be. I know some people are gung ho about something coming in, but I'd say especially transactional lawyers aren't necessarily that way. I mean, by your 1L summer, you've taken torts and con law, and like none of that applies to any of this. So um, I think our firm, emphasizes definitely in the summer programs, try out different groups, meet people in different groups, get exposure to different work. And then even after starting, I'd say really I'm in my third year and it still feels like I'm doing new work because I've been seeking it out. So I like mergers and acquisitions, but I like, debt offerings. And so I've been able to learn and to become a better lawyer and to figure out what my long-term career plan is without necessarily, sacrificing options. So I'd say our firm does a pretty good job at that. Okay, moving on to the next question. Uh, what parts of law school helped prepare you the most for being an associate? And we'll start with Addie here.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I feel like a lot of the soft skills that you learn in law school, whether it's organization, some recently I've been like telling people that outlining helped me so much with like the diligence efforts that I'm doing now and just like synthesizing information. But law school is unique in that that's the first time you're given a massive exam at the end of a semester and you're in charge of managing, like getting things done at your pace and making sure that you're meeting a deadline. So I think that sort of time management helped me a lot. I think in college, I was not one to ever go to office hours or do anything like that. And taking the time to do that in law school helped me like build those communication skills and talking to mid-levels or partners on some days. So I would say those are the big two for me, organization and communication skills.
Why don't we go to John? What would you say helps you the most?
I was really involved on like different clubs on campus at my law school. And kind of being really involved in things like softball and being a tour guide is like kind of like does not sound like it would translate to the boring corporate work, but it really does allow you to kind of one learn how to do those time management skills, and two learning how to work with lawyers because when you make something happen at your law school, that's those are the personality types and maybe your future colleagues that you're learning how to work with. So learning how to balance that along with the coursework was really, really good to prepare me for being an associate because when you're busy on a deal, you still have to do normal life things. And learning kind of how those time management, like soft skills, can have helped me, I think, translate well to this job. And also, it's fun. Just be involved on campus, especially 2L.
Thank you for that, John. One correction for the record, John mentioned or described corporate work as being boring, and it's actually fast-paced and exhilarating at all times. But Katie, what about you? What do you think prepared you the most?
Yeah, I think a lot of time management and just juggling competing priorities. During final season, you have 3 different classes that you have to study for. And I mean, after 1L, like I had days where I had 3 finals in a row. So just that's very similar here, where it's last week I had 2 closings, so I had to figure out how to make sure I was getting everything done that needed to be done for the multiple deals. And so just learning how to balance all of that. And it is the first time, like it's nothing like undergrad where it's like all on you, all self-paced. And I think there's a lot of that too when you're just dealing with like there's no overlap between your teams, so nobody knows what your different priorities are, and it's up to you to make sure everything gets done.
Great. Our next question is a good question. Why V&E? And Katie, why don't we go back to you?
I chose V&E because of the people. I worked before law school. I was in public accounting, which is similar to working in big law in that there's crazy hours. And in doing that, there were teams that I liked and teams that I didn't like as much. And the ones where I really enjoyed the people I worked with made it 100 times easier and more enjoyable. I learned more. I did better work with that. So when I was going through the 1L recruiting and interview process, I just really focused on people that I enjoyed talking to that actually seemed to take an interest in me as a person outside of like if I would be a good associate for them. And that also seemed to like enjoy each other and like know about each other outside of work. As a 1L, I really didn't know what it meant to like be a corporate attorney. And like some firms are like, oh, we're great at public M&A, we're great at equity financing, all these things. And I just didn't know what that meant. So I was like, I'm going to go with the people that I like and then figure it out. And the work will come after that. So that's why I chose V&E.
John, what about you? Why V&E?
So for me, it was one of the people, like I mentioned, I really liked kind of doing the OCI and getting exposure to a lot of attorneys, and I thought that they felt like a good group to work with. But also, working at the New York office, we're smaller than the two Dallas and Houston offices. We're about 160 attorneys. And I kind of wanted that specifically. I didn't want I wanted to do transactional work. I knew I was going to come to New York. And I kind of liked the smaller size of the office. That's like having a more specific reason of what I really liked about V&E. Still getting like New York transactional work, still being in the city, but not having, the insane summer class sizes or just huge, huge groups that other New York firms have. So that's another reason that really attracted to me to the firm when I was doing all my research before I made my choice.
Addie, want to add?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to Katie's because I was also just a people person. I wasn't sure what group or substance I wanted to practice. It was really the people, but I will add that not just the attorneys at the time, but I kind of like looked around and I really just got along with my summer class. And I felt like there were people that I would really enjoy traveling through the firm with. I actually went to one of my friends from the summer program, her wedding last weekend. So it's just like things like that where you feel like you're building a community that's going to stick with you, and that sort of camaraderie was very important to me.
Great. Our next question, this is a classic buzzword you what else we'll hear a lot, but can you speak to the mentorship you received at V&E? And that can either be as a summer or as a practicing lawyer. John, why don't you take a first go?
I have lots of people I could like thank who've helped me grow as an attorney. We staff kind of leanly in the group up here, so a lot of the time, even as like a new first year, it would be me, a mid-level, and the partner, and getting to kind of work directly with the mid-level to learn process, having the partner explain concepts to me multiple times, not really getting it then, but kind of learning it now. And just kind of being, in a place where people are very cordial, very excited to, or very friendly and kind of very about the team aspect of it. And then as a summer, like getting just a lot of mentorship, a lot from like my other summer associates. I was straight through. I had never really worked a real job before, and having some of the summers who were, a little bit older, had maybe had a second career or worked a little bit after undergrad. It was really, really cool to like talk to them about like, workplace etiquette, how to manage their time, things like that. And the first 6 months, like people helping me with all the different pieces of technology that I have to learn how to use.
Katie, why don't you speak toward mentorship?
Yeah. So in the summer associate program and as an associate, I think it's firm-wide and not just in Austin, but everyone's assigned an associate mentor and a partner mentor. So there is that sort of formal mentorship, but beyond that, I also have so many informal mentors. Because the Austin office is small, I would say I have like good relationships with everyone in the corporate group here. And there's nobody I feel like I can't go to if I have a question or like need help navigating, either if it's a substantive question on a deal or just dealing with like workplace politics and deal team dynamics. And I think that's what I really like about the Austin office specifically. It's just smaller. I know everyone. And I've just felt very supportive throughout my first year here. I think I do monthly lunches with my formal mentor, but I think that my informal mentorships and like those relationships are just as helpful and important to me.
Addie, do you have anything more here?
Yeah, I think I'll just add in general, I think one of our firm's strengths is that it's not terribly hierarchical. Like, I think I've had several partners check in on me on various things. Maybe like the mid-level is out for the deal, or maybe I'm a little bit busier than I've been in the past. And just having partners like stop by your office and check in like means a lot. I also have various mid-level mentors where even if they're not on the deal, I can just run over. And in tax, I'm sure they've like touched a deal at like somewhat similar to it. So I can just kind of like hop over to their office and ask a question. And it's really helpful. Like no matter what firm you're at, first year is like just such a learning curve, soft skills and substantively. So having that sort of support is like really huge.
I'd agree with that, and this probably doesn't get mentioned a lot with mentorship, but I'm in the corporate group in the Houston office, and we've got usually a large class that comes in every year in just our practice group. I think we just took a class around 19 or something like that. And at least in my first year, there are some questions when you're starting work that they say no dumb questions or nothing's a bad question, but deep down that there are some things that would be bothering, especially a partner, someone who's been around and obviously knows the answer. But when you come in with a big group, or probably even with a smaller group, you have peers in your class who have done different things. And so, if someone's done an M&A deal, but someone else in our class hasn't, will maybe that person might rely on someone in the M&A group like, hey, I just got asked to do this, but I have no idea where to start. And I'm, a third year, and we still have a chat with our fellow corp, you know, associates who started in our year, and I'm constantly messaging in there asking people who have gotten more exposure to certain types of work, specific questions, and hopefully I'm contributing to that chat as well. And so that I'd say that's also an underrated part, just kind of the learning from your peers a lot happens. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is grounds us in the practice. Addie, why don't you start with what your day-to-day generally looks like?
Okay, I'll start with a disclaimer that every day, at least in my group, feels like completely different work-wise, which I love. I feel like it helps keep me engaged. As a specialist, I'm on like a variety of different matters. I might be on an M&A deal with some debt offerings, credit agreements, and then a bulk of my time is in the tax equity space in renewable energy. So every day looks very different. You never know as a specialist which deal is going to be meaty that day. But today, I'll just walk through today. So, I roll in. I have some like longer term deadlines, whether it's diligence or maybe some heftier agreements, like a credit agreement that I'll kind of chug along on. May have some emails come in and out, different things where they need a little bit of tax advice. Today we had a tax roundtable where we talk about some of the most recent updates. Today was about Loper Bright. I'm sure that's come up in some law school classes. So yeah, we meet, we eat lunch, we hear some of the experts in our group speak on that. And then I continue. I had a call with a partner today, talking through some deliverables that we're trying to get across. Then I turned those around to her, and then I joined the panel. And tonight I'll probably go on a nice walk, and there's that.
John?
I think every transactional attorney will say that there can be huge variability in what you do day to day, but generally, in finance, you kind of will on like 3 or 4 deals at a time, and those can be at many different stages. Some of those can be very new, and if I have a bunch of new deals, that'll be a lot of calls with the client to figure out what the scope of the deal is going to look like. Some deals are, getting close to closing, and that will be kind of putting documents together. And then in between there, it can be a lot of talking with clients to get the documents that are being requested, meeting with the other side to figure out, where we're at on, where we're at in the process, areas that might be contentious or that drafts are kind of disagreeing on. And then generally, throughout all of that, we have, CLEs and other responsibilities like this in there. So I think that's kind of the basic part is that depending on where my 4 or 5 deals are at in the process, some days might just be a lot of talking or listening, and other days might be a lot of putting the documents together, drafting legal opinions, etc. Yeah.
Katie, how about you?
Yeah, this question's so hard because every day is different. But it is one of the reasons I do like this job. It keeps it interesting. And like John was saying, I think it really depends a lot on where the state, like your deals are. So I had a deal close last week, and today I did some compiling up the closing set for that, getting out. We had some post-close notifications that we had to do, so drafting those. And then I have some deals that are just now starting, so checking the VDR periodically throughout the day, seeing what's uploaded, reviewing those documents, updating our diligence memo for that, and then just drafting some ancillaries and sending those to the mid-level for review. But really just depends on what's going on in your deals, but it makes it fun. It makes it exciting.
Great. It's, I sometimes I look back at law school as, being this stunk in some ways because I had to study and I didn't like 1L, but there's also a consistency to schedule that was very comforting in law school. But in our careers, it's some people find it maybe not so exciting, but I think the general vibe from this panel is you wouldn't want to be doing the same thing every day. And maybe if you do, I'm sure you could find a job at V&E that would cater to that. But generally in the transactional and adversarial world, you're in client services. So you don't really know what's going to happen day to day. And things are dynamic for that reason. Next question we have is a good one. What was your favorite memory from the summer associate program? And we'll start with Addie.
I won't take too long to explain, but 1L, we had just gotten our return offers for 2L. I know they do jumbo offers now, but that was a big relief and very exciting. So we all like hopped in a car, and then I think at the time we did Javier's in Dallas. So just honestly, like my favorite time is being in the car with my fellow summer associates, and we're like blasting music and so excited. So that's mine.
Katie, what about you? Favorite memory?
My camera just zoomed in on me. I think I spent my second summer with the Austin and New York offices, and I did my second half in the New York office, and so I was kind of nervous going in there. Everyone already knew each other. I was going to be the new girl, all that. But I just like remember going in on my first day. I got lunch with some of the other summers and junior associates, and everyone was just like so welcoming and friendly and got me staffed up doing some work right away. So I think that was just a very pleasant surprise for me, and I felt welcome and like a part of the New York office right away. And that was just a nice experience.
John?
One of the traditions in the New York office is the final summer event is karaoke, which is really, really fun. There's a bunch of karaoke bars in K-Town in New York City, and just kind of going there, we got our official "you have a return" offer at the beginning of the day. So it was really, really fun to just kind of go that and have kind of the big send off to the summer with everyone. Yeah, karaoke is really fun, even though I'm bad at singing. It's still a good time.
That's a great one. I'd ask Addie and Katie, were there any like specific events that V&E had for your offices that you kind of think fondly back on?
Yeah, and Dallas Casino Night's like our big one. It's very exciting. We have like a whole ticket system, and you can win tickets and then apply them to like a raffle. But it's kind of like everyone's big show out. You're all dressed up. You see everyone. You get to meet a lot of people's partners, which I think is really cool too. But yeah, that's also top favorite for me.
I have two favorite events in the Austin office. One is our Women's Initiative event that we do every summer. It's a wine and chocolate tasting, and it's just or cheese, wine, and chocolate tasting at Antonelli's here in Austin. And it's always so good, so fun. This year we had permanent bracelet making at the beginning, so that was fun. And then my second one is our big like summer soiree, which everyone goes to. It's like all office and people bring their partners. So I just always think that's fun to get to know people's significant others outside of the office. And it's always like a great turnout. So I think that's a good one too.
I will shout out the V&E Houston office did an event in the tax group that was a cheese tasting, and they just brought all these cheeses, and obviously we tasted them, but they had a ton left over, and I remember being at 1L and I was like, oh, that's free food, and I kept pounds of cheese in my refrigerator for the rest of the summer and would live off of that cheese. It was awesome. I was building more on the summer program. What makes the V&E Summer Associate Program unique? John, do you have an answer for that?
Free market in New York is cool because you do just kind of have conversations, get to try a lot of things out. I was able to try not only finance, but corporate, shareholder activism, restructuring, real estate, litigation. And that was really, really cool. And it also meant that just events, there was a lot of like kind of fluid, like, people would be very happy to talk about the practice group because that's how you would kind of get exposure to it. So I think that makes it unique, at least up here. And the people are great. I think that's the underlying part of all the discussions about V&E.
Katie, what made it unique?
I really enjoy that as a summer you get to do real work. There's no like fake negotiations or anything, which I am not a fan of. So I really enjoyed being able to do real work. And in the Austin office, because we are a smaller office, we have a program where all of the summer associates shadow a different associate in the corporate group every week. So I think that's interesting because you get to see who's on different deals and kind of like a day in the or a week in the life of like these different associates on the different deals in different stages. And I think that's just good exposure to see a lot of different matters in your 10 weeks in the office.
Addie?
Yeah, I think this is true for the rotation program, which we do in Dallas and I believe Houston, but it also is true for New York. Just the fact that everyone really wants you to find the best fit for you. So it's really a buffet of work. I know my first summer, I didn't even go through finance, but I just asked a mid-level if I could take an agreement or two and like take a crack at them because I wanted to be sure that that was like, that I wasn't ruling out something that would have been a great fit for me. Safe to say the credit agreement scared me away, and then now I still do them in tax, but anyways, yeah, so I think not being locked into a certain group is really nice. And being able to sort of like test all of that out, because even if you think you know what you want to do, I thought I wanted to be a litigator. Um, Sometimes there's more to explore than you think.
Great. Thank you all for that. Next question we have is, what's one thing you learned during the summer program that you still use today? Katie, why don't you start?
I think the one like most important thing I learned is the importance of communication and like at sometimes over communicating and just being responsive. When I first started as a summer, just like all the confirming receipt emails or like thanks will do emails seemed a bit overwhelming to me. But now being an associate, I realize how important it is just to like be communicating, let people know you're on top of something. And then also if you have questions, like communicate those. It's better, I think, to ask questions and good questions on the front end than assume that you're doing it one way and then it's just a mess to unwind at the back end. So just communicating, letting everyone know that what you're doing, if you have some conflict that you can't do something, also being upfront about that is really important.
John, is there something that you learned during the summer program you still use?
No matter where you go, you're going to have to enter your time, and using those 10 weeks to kind of figure out how our software Intap works, and like what worked best for me and what I enjoyed doing the most. Use those 10 weeks to figure out how to do it, because it's a part of the profession. It is something that you get better at as you do it, but those 10 weeks are a great time to kind of keep track of all the things you're doing in a day, especially because you have so many kind of scheduled events on top of the work you get, and learning how to keep track and enter those accurately will help you in the long run.
Addie?
Yeah, I think you learned so many soft skills. Like I'd never really understood what a red line was and things like that, like running a red line. The summer program is great for that. Um, One thing that I kind of took with me, I feel like someone told me anything you can do to make someone's life a little bit easier, even for just a couple seconds, it counts and it matters. So sometimes that looks like renaming the attachments so that like they know exactly what they're going to open, because the average partner gets like 1,500 emails a day, and they might not even know the status at that second of what they're looking at. And then another thing, like if I'm sending something piecemeal, I will, at the end be like reattaching the two things I sent earlier today for convenience, like so you have it all in one place. So just little things like that, like a way to be a value add, at least in tax, is a huge substantive learning curve. So things like that can go a long way, I think.
Thank you. I remember being in law school, and we would have lawyers come speak to us about practicing, and a lot of it went over my head for sure. Um, and I remember one, panelist said that after you take the bar and you start practicing law, at that moment, you'll never have a better understanding of the law, but you'll never be a worse lawyer. And I think that speaks to the fact that in the summer program, you can learn a lot about becoming a better lawyer, and it is in those soft areas of communicating with others. What is life like in, maybe a corporate setting you haven't been in before, and learning skills that aren't necessarily law related, which is what law school is for, but those other skills that will make you actually a better lawyer. I'm sure there are tons of things that we just kind of implicitly use to this day that we learned in the summer program. And okay, we've got one more I forgot from earlier, but this is a good one for our friends here. What advice do you have for a 1L going through the application and interview process? John, any advice?
I think knowing the split between litigation and transactional is, or if you're undecided there, is something that you kind of can figure out. It still can be really hard, like looking in this big box of it all. But if you know you really want to do, legal research and writing, or you're very, repulsed by that, it's good to kind of have that set up because that will really help with you figure out kind of what markets you want to target. And then in interviews, that's one of the only questions that kind of everyone will ask of, especially if they're a firm like ours that split evenly between the two or relatively evenly between the two. That and then kind of knowing your own narrative. I think that's the second part of it. Like, why do you want to be a lawyer? Why do you want to work in this market? If you have specific interests, why do you have them there? You're going to explain that a lot. So kind of refining that and getting that down can help make the process go a lot faster.
Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of do your research about a firm, see what their strengths are, make sure you're up to date on everything that's going on. It's always exciting and impressive if somebody can pull from knowledge of a recent deal that's happened or a recent case that's won. Um, and also coming to the interview with questions. Um, it doesn't have to be something like super substantive, but just asking like, what's the culture like? Are you guys very siloed, or do you work very cross office, or questions that people can tell you put some thought into and are important to you? I think that can go a long way in showing your engagement and interest.
Katie?
Yeah, I think coming to events like this and just learning as much as you can about the different firms so you have as much information as you can when making your decision on where you want to end up, and also in your interviews, you'll know as much as you can about each firm and have a good narrative on why that firm, why a certain practice area, why a certain office, I think is really important. And I also think, I know one else crazy, November is crazy, um, but grades are also very important. So I think while this can seem all time consuming, just don't get behind on reading and outlining, and goes back to good time management, making sure you're doing it all.
Great, thank you. I think that's all we have